5776 has been a difficult year for our global community. I have come to expect that I will wake up to news about the ongoing pain and suffering that plagues our world. My sadness, anger, and my disgust cannot seem to keep up with the frequency of these tragedies. Images of violence and terror have scarred my soul. Interviews of individuals who have lost their homes and loved ones as the result of natural disasters breaks my heart. And reading the statistics about the number of people who are impoverished, hungry, and ill throughout the world sickens my stomach. The only comfort that I have found is my insistence on choosing hope rather than despair, faith rather than doubt, and optimism rather than uncertainty. We all want to combat injustice and suffering, and all of us in some way do. I am constantly inspired by every act of compassion, charity, and engagement that our members here at Temple Israel perform each day. Your impact has surely contributed to a better tomorrow. Your universe of obligation, those individuals and groups to whom you hold yourself responsible, extend locally, nationally, and globally. Amongst the persistent darkness that has struck our world, each of your deeds reveal its hidden light. I realize, though, that if I am to believe that what I do helps transform our world of brokenness into one of wholeness, my own hopes must evolve into action. Yes. As a rabbi, one could argue that my work is entirely for the sake of tikkun olam, the repair of the world. I became a rabbi to defend the respect and dignity that each of us deserves as one of God's creations. Each of us were created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image. So I speak from the pulpit about the injustices of the world. I encourage our religious school students to donate to tzedakah. I help our B'nai Mitzvah students execute a mitzvah project. I attend community vigils and memorials. I make donations from my discretionary fund. And all of these things are important aspects of my rabbinate. And I hope that in some way, these deeds, like yours, help move us forward in eradicating injustices and suffering. Yet I have allowed the work that I'm required to do as a rabbi to stand in for the work that I'm required to do as a human being. I've sinned. I have transgressed. I've missed the mark. Whether knowingly or not, I have justified that no further action on my part needs to be done. I'm disappointed in myself. I'm so immersed and consumed by my own responsibilities that I'm overwhelmed to even think about expanding my universe of obligation, those whom I personally feel responsible for. My words and my actions are not in alignment. I say that I want to do more, but I have yet to move. The mystics taught that God, whose divine light filled all of primordial space, contracted so that there would be space for the universe God wished to create. God withdrew to make room for all that was to be. Divine light poured into vessels representing God's attributes and shattered the vessels with their power. The broken vessels spread throughout the entire universe for us to find them. See, the mystics believed that tikkun olam would be realized when those shattered lights are restored. evil and suffering would finally be overcome. And Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel asserted that few are guilty, but all are responsible. Few are guilty, but all are responsible for the enduring presence of suffering and evil. Therefore, in order for the broken shards of the world to be mended back together, we are obligated to see and act beyond ourselves. Our boundaries of obligation exceed boundaries of geography and intimacy. Simply being aware of the injustices and suffering that exist in our world makes us responsible to those impacted by it. The fate of the world, then, rests in the actions and deeds that we do with our hands. Our sages taught that we are not obligated to complete the work of perfecting the world, but we are also not free to desist from it. In other words, it is not our responsibility to finish the work of Tikkun Olam, but it is imperative that we do not create barriers for it to eventually come to be. Therefore, as long as my commitment to Tikkun Olam is limited to what I do as a rabbi, I believe that I am preventing the shattered lights from being restored. As long as injustice and suffering persists, there must be more that I can do. There must be more that each of us can do. Ravi was lured to the United States from India by an oil rig construction company operating in the Gulf Coast. Lacking skilled welders and pipe fitters to help rebuild after Hurricane Katrina, the company brought Ravi from India on a non-agricultural guest worker visa, promising him a permanent visa and residency. But the promises, they were false. Instead, Ravi was forced to live with 23 other men in a small room with no privacy and only 2 toilets. The camp was lined up with barbed wire and security guards, so no one outside knew of Ravi's whereabouts. The company charged so much for food and a bunk bed that Ravi was unable to send any money home or repay the money he borrowed for his travel expenses to the United States. And when Ravi and his co-workers began organizing to protest their working conditions, the company began arbitrary firings and private deportations of some of the workers. In Louisiana, the Isle de Jean Charles is quickly receding due to coastal erosion. It's the first island to be evacuated by the U.S. government due to climate change. However, residents like Edison stand strong and refuse to leave. Upon entering the island, one could see Edison holding a handwritten sign for all of us to see. We are not moving off this island. If some people want to move, they can go, but leave us alone. The people have the right to live where they want, not where people tell them to go and tell them to live. They say the island is fading away soon and we won't have an island left. If the island is not good, stay away. May God bless this island. It's worth saving. And then there's Dylan, a 14-year-old who has had to sacrifice a lot since his mom got laid off from her job 4 years ago. He wears his mom's pants because they can't afford to buy new clothes. He can't take the college classes that he's qualified for because his family can't afford them. His mom doesn't know it, but he even quit baseball so she wouldn't have to spend money on his uniform. He and his mom can't afford healthy foods, and healthy foods that some people can because they only receive $200 a month of food stamps. Sometimes they run out of food, and he's gone for days without sleep because of hunger. These stories bring us into the lives of people outside of our local communities, some from across the nation and others halfway around the world. And the moment that we heard them, we became obligated to them as human beings, even if only for a brief period of time. However, our tradition reminds us that casting our net of responsibility widely is not a momentary task, but one that endures each day and every day. Ravi, Edison, and Dylan are all part of our community. We can help individuals like Ravi, whose working conditions mirror that of 27 million people held in forced labor through violence, through fraud, and through coercion. We can help people like Edison, whose homes and communities have become vulnerable to climate change. And we can assist people like Dylan, who lack access to enough food for him and his mother to lead an active and healthy life. They are all part of our family. And when our family needs help, we do what we can to help them. We can be conscious consumers by investigating the origins of the goods that we buy and not buy things that were produced unethically. It means that we must ensure that the products we buy are produced using fair and safe labor practices. We can explore how much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are formed because of the choices that we make and how we use energy. It means that we can urge members of Congress to support the Green Climate Fund, established to help developing countries both mitigate the causes of and adapt to the reality of climate disruption. Or we can fight for environmental legislation that protects the lives of those who live near waste transfer stations, power plants, and other sources of pollution. We can speak against a federal budget proposal for the 2017 fiscal year that significantly decreases funding for supplemental nutrition programs that feed nearly 5 million Americans every day. And we can further our partnerships with local organizations such as the Gillespie Center, Jewish Family Services, and the Fairfield County Food Bank in ensuring that those who are hungry are fed nutritious meals and have increased access to healthy, non-perishable goods. The call to Tikkun Olam does not prescribe how it can be best achieved because it has many faces. We all can make a difference and mend the fractures of the world, one day and one act at a time, for as long as it takes to make a place of justice and compassion. I can make a difference too, contributing to Tikkun Olam not only as a rabbi, but as a member of our global community. It has been all too easy for me to become discouraged in the face of the overwhelming justice, violence, hunger, and pain that exists in the world. And all too comfortable for me to allow that my work as a rabbi to stand in for my obligations to others as a human being. The loud blasts of the shofar have awoken me from my sleep, and I reply, Hineni, here I am. Inspired by the stories of Ravi, Edison, and Dylan, this will be a year that's filled with intentional changes that I will make to help tip the scale in the direction of justice and peace. Organizations such as Made in a Free World, Fair Trade USA, and the Fair Trade Federation provide resources to determine whether or not the goods that I am buying have been ethically produced in safe and fair conditions for its workers. I strive for 5777 to be a year in which my consumer habits are informed by my understanding of where my goods are coming from and how they are made. by tracking my carbon footprint through the Nature Conservatory, the Carbon Fund, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency, I have an increased awareness of how much greenhouse gases are created by the choices that I make each day, and also where I can save energy. I strive for 5777 to be a year in which I reduce my carbon footprint and offset my own carbon use by funding other carbon reduction projects. And finally, after learning that almost $1 trillion worth of food is wasted each year throughout the world, I've come to realize how much food that I buy and that I end up throwing away because it's expired or because I choose to go to a restaurant rather than eat what is already in my home. I strive for 5777 to be a year in which I become a more conscientious grocery shopper, thinking about what I buy and when it will be eaten. I can't halt oppression in the world. I can't abolish hunger or end human suffering alone. But what I do can help someone relieve her pain, satisfy someone's hunger, or win justice for someone unfairly accused. In 5777, how will you expand your universe of obligation? What will you do when you see the injustices and suffering that is ever present in our world? How will you react when you hear about natural disasters across the globe? Can I count on you to transform your awareness of what afflicts our world into doing what is right? Will you partner with me in this quest for Tikkun Olam? Every good act lights candles of hope in a dark world. And when all of us act, the world becomes a little brighter. During this High Holy Day season, may our hearts be open to the suffering that we see around the world. May our minds expand to learn about the causes of poverty and seek solutions. May our mouths speak out against inequality and educate others. May our arms labor to build community and pursue change. And may our feet run to take action, refusing to remain still in the face of justice. And may each of our hands embrace others, creating a human bond and lifting up the oppressed. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be so. Amen.
I can change the world with my own two hands, make it a better place. With my own two hands, make it a kinder place. With my own two hands, with my own two hands, I can make peace on earth. With my own two hands, I can clean up the earth. With my own two hands, I can reach out to you. With my own two hands, with my own two hands. With my own two hands, gonna make it a brighter place. With my own two hands, it's gonna make it a safer place. With my own two hands, it's gonna help the human race. With my own two hands, with my own two hands. With my own two hands, and I can hold you. With my own two hands, and then I can comfort you. With my own two hands, but you got to use your own two hands. Use your own two hands. Use your own with your own two hands. With my own two hands.